I would never sign any document or make any agreement, agree to any decision that I did not feel was in the best interest of this country. Nor would the President of the United States, who made the final decision with the full support of his national security team.
All right, folks, that was Chuck Hagel testifying today before the House Armed Services Committee. And as promised, we're joined right now by Senator Rob Portman. And, of course, he is a member of the House Senate Homeland Security Committee. Hello, Senator.
Steve, how are you?
Thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate it. What do you think of what Chuck Hagel had to say there? Do you agree that these men who were released are not a threat to the United States?
Well, I do not agree with that, and it's not based on my personal opinion. It's based on testimony that was given to the United States Senate by the Director of National Intelligence, Mr. Clapper, who testified way back in 2012 that these 5 guys were a high risk. I was at that briefing. I was a member of the Armed Services Committee at the time. And look, there's no question that these guys are already, talking about returning to the fight, and that they are going to be back in the fight at a time when we have troops in Afghanistan. So it's definitely a risk. And by the way, everything we've heard from the Intelligence Committee, even recently, would confirm that they recognize this is going to be a risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I want you to hear something else that the senator said. He was interviewed questioned by Congressman Forbes, and it asked about the risk of having to go recapture these people if they do turn back to terror, because John Kerry has intimated that we could get them again if they become problematic. So here's how the conversation turned.
Would we put American lives at risk to go after them?
We
Yes
have
or no?
We have American lives put at risk.
I understand that, Mr. Secretary. My question is, will we put American lives at risk to go after these individuals if they rejoin the fight?
Well, yes.
Did you make an assessment? Did you make an assessment of how many American lives may be put at risk if they have to be recaptured?
No.
Is that acceptable to you, Senator?
And look, I think there's no question that these guys are going to get back in the fight. One of them apparently has already made statements indicating he's looking forward to it. And you've got the Taliban, which is involved in fighting and killing American troops right now in Afghanistan, with an office in Qatar. They are reunited, therefore, with Taliban, senior leaders. One of these guys was an intel officer for the Taliban, very high-ranking. Another guy was a military commander. These people are definitely going to make life more difficult for our troops, and they're likely to have American blood on their hands again, as they already do. So I don't think that's really debatable, and I can't believe the administration now is trying to look back at this kind of revisionist history, saying, well, what we said before about these guys being high risk and the fact that, they're going to return to the fight, just forget all that. We've suddenly decided that they were rehabilitated somehow in Guantanamo over the last couple of years. I don't think anybody believes that.
And I want to get to your resolution in a second, but here's another one they're throwing out there, that these guys weren't fighters, they were planners. Well, wasn't Osama bin Laden a planner?
Yeah, planners are pretty dangerous. As someone said, this is like the Taliban cabinet.
Yeah.
Some of these guys, and so they understand warfare. They understand intelligence. The intel guy had connections with a number of terrorist groups, including Al Qaeda, apparently. And so these are senior level operatives who are going to make it more difficult for us. Again, don't take my word for it. Listen to what the Taliban commanders have said. The Time magazine story talked about this, and there was a quote specifically 2 days after they were released saying this is like pouring 10,000 additional Taliban fighters into the jihad. So it's not us, saying it. Listen to the Taliban themselves. This is a problem. Now, what we are doing is trying to pass a resolution which does 2 things. One, puts Congress clearly on record saying what the president did was illegal because it violated both the defense authorization bill and an appropriations bill, says you have to come to Congress. And by the way, it's not just notification. He was required to provide a detailed justification for releasing these guys and to provide explanation as to what their conditions would be upon their release. That never happened. It still hasn't happened, in my view. So that's why the notification is important, not just notifying Congress. It's that it would have required a process that could have led to a better decision here. Second, the resolution says that we need to examine what the impact is of the transfer of these individuals on our national security and how we can mitigate the problem that has now been created. And I think that's really important to get, one, this Congress on record, and second, investigating the results here so that we can minimize the chance of this happening again. Otherwise, I'm fearful that they will simply continue to allow some of these hardened Taliban leaders and other terrorists to exit Guantanamo without going through the proper procedures.
Yeah, it seems like that might be the plan. Let me switch gears here for a minute. Senator, yesterday they're calling it a political earthquake when the House Majority Leader Eric Cantor lost in his primary. Just a little while ago, it was announced by Eric Cantor that he'll be stepping down from that majority leadership position at the end of July. What's your read on what took place in Virginia yesterday?
You know, I'm not sure. I know that there's been lots of discussion about specific issues, immigration being the one that's talked about most. I assume that had a role, Steve, but it's interesting because on the same night, Lindsey Graham won handily, who certainly has been, much more of an advocate for immigration reform. And so I'm not sure that that's the only reason. In fact, I don't think it is. I think there are other factors. Every district is different. Every state is different. Some have said that, his pollster clearly ought to be looked at because, everyone thought the expectation game was that he was going to win by 20, 30 points. So there were some things that obviously were not working well in his campaign.
Does this is this the death knell for immigration reform of any kind for this year prior to the midterm elections?
I was never thinking that we would do something before the midterm elections with regard to immigration reform. I think it's more likely that it's done after the election. Next year, I hope we'll have a Republican majority in the Senate and a Republican majority in the House, and we can ensure that we do have a secure border, that we are enforcing the law at the workplace. As you may know, Steve, that's been one of my great disappointments in the legislation that passed the Senate is that it does not provide for adequate workplace enforcement, which is the magnet for so many people who come here. And until you deal with that, and specifically deal with the fact that people use these fraudulent documents and get work, I think it's impossible to have an effective enforcement. So I think we need to focus more on the enforcement side. Clearly, the immigration system is broken. I don't think anybody would be able to argue that. Legal and illegal both need to be reformed. But we need to do it the right way.
And Senator, one more on this very quickly. The dumping of these children who are pouring across the border without their parents. Now 3 military bases are being utilized for these camps, if you will. Some calling them refugee camps. This appears to be a calculated effort on the part of the president, again, telling ICE what to do, and it's unprecedented.
It is. It's really unbelievable what's happening. I've been watching some of the news stories and seeing some of the video, and I think the message clearly has gone out, and this is, as I understand it, a lot of these young people are from Central America, some are from Mexico and other countries, but the message has gone out, if you get into the United States, you're going to be fine, as if we, had already passed legislation that was the kind of reform the president wants to have. So the president needs to speak clearly. Frankly, it's in the interest of these children and their families that he speak clearly and say, our laws continue to be in place, that, we will continue to enforce our laws, and no, there is no ability if you come here as a young person to
right.
Get citizenship and then bring your family, because apparently that's what they think. And
so he should say, don't let your kids come here, is what he should say, right?
Yeah, he should make it very clear and do it today. I mean, he needs to get that message out. I think this is, honestly, it's a humanitarian problem.
Absolutely, medical, humanitarian. There are all kinds of reports. Yeah. Senator, a pleasure, and I hope you'll come back often. And
Steve,
thank you very much.
To talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for raising the resolution. Anybody who's listening wants to participate in this, go on our website, go on other websites, and we've got some information on this resolution. We'd love to encourage every senator to sign it.
Will do. Good. Thank you for that, Senator. Thank you very much. Senator Rob Portman, ladies and gentlemen. My pleasure here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And we are coming back, and we are going to take a closer look at, and by the way, that's huge, that the president needs to tell the people of Mexico, our president, don't bring your kids here, don't send your kids here. Because look where they're winding up. The reports I read to you yesterday, health concerns, sexual activity among some of these older kids. It's a nightmare, and the president does need, if he cares about the children so much, he should tell the parents of Mexican children, don't send your kids here. It's illegal, and they're going to suffer, unfortunately. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about Eric Cantor and the primaries and the earthquake that was last night right here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Don't go away.